HFY stories. The importance of seatbelts. The SS Horizon's Edge had always been known for its smooth interstellar cruises, ferrying passengers across the galaxy in unmatched luxury. Humans were a minority on the vessel, a curiosity among the various alien species who frequented the ship. To most of the galaxy, humanity was still considered a relatively new addition to the interstellar community, ingenious, stubborn, and, at times, hilariously overprepared. This reputation was why Captain Zelvan, a seasoned Thrin with decades of deep space experience, had initially dismissed the human obsession with seatbelts. Straps for securing yourself to a seat? Zelvan had scoffed during the design phase. Inertia dampeners eliminate the need for such primitive devices. The human engineer, Lieutenant Mark Harris, had insisted otherwise. Sure, your dampeners work, until they don't, he said, eyes narrowing with a seriousness that unsettled the captain. Reluctantly, Zelvan allowed the installation of seatbelts on the bridge, primarily to placate the humans on board. He never imagined they'd actually need them. The day everything changed began like any other. The ship was gliding through the serene beauty of the Ralphax Nebula. Passengers mingled in the atriums, dining halls buzzed with activity, and the crew maintained their routines. Suddenly, the serenity shattered. A high-pitched alarm screamed through the ship, and the lights flickered. Zelvan lunged for the control console, his talons skittering over the interface. "Report," he barked. "Unknown anomaly," one of the technicians replied. "Gravity spike, massive. We're being pulled off course." The screen displayed a rapidly approaching gravitational anomaly, a rogue singularity. The ship's automatic systems scrambled to compensate, but the inertial dampeners began to falter under the strain. The crew felt the first jolt. It was mild at first, like a bump in the road, then came another, sharper and more violent. Crew members stumbled, and Zelvan himself had to grip the console to stay upright. "Brace for." Before the captain could finish his warning, the ship lurched violently. Unsecured crew members were hurled across the bridge like ragdolls. Zelvan slammed into the bulkhead with a sickening thud, stars exploding in his vision. When he opened his eyes, he saw Harris, still securely seated, thanks to his seatbelt, working furiously at his console. "Harris," Zelvan croaked, "status." "Dampeners are failing, Captain. We're going to need to ride this out manually," Harris replied, his voice calm but focused. Zelvan blinked in disbelief. The human was steady, unharmed, and in control, because of the very primitive device the captain had mocked. One by one, the human members of the bridge crew, all strapped into their seats, began to coordinate. Harris issued commands with precision, his fingers flying over the controls. "We're stabilizing," Harris announced moments later, redirecting power to the engines. "We'll clear the singularity in 30 seconds. Zelvan watched in awe as the humans worked seamlessly together, their seatbelts keeping them secure and focused despite the chaos around them. When the Horizon's Edge finally returned to calm space, the captain's pride was bruised as much as his body. He limped to his seat, glaring at the restraint system he'd once mocked. Harris, still buckled in, turned to him with a faint grin. "Sometimes, Captain, it pays to plan for when things go wrong." From that day forward, human seatbelt protocols became standard across all Thrin vessels. Zelvan would later admit, albeit grudgingly, that humans had taught him a valuable lesson about preparation and humility. And so, humanity's reputation as the galaxy's champions of over-preparation gained yet another chapter. #HFY stories. Humanity's miracle metal. The interstellar mining vessel Deep Horizon floated in the orbit of Tarsus 4, a rocky, uninhabitable planet rich with minerals. The crew was a mix of species, sturdy Krell, agile Venix, and a handful of humans. Among them was Drive, Eliza Carter, a material scientist who had earned her reputation for turning worthless rocks into gold mines. Tarsus 4's claim to fame wasn't its abundance of rare minerals, it was the mysterious deposits of an unknown, dense metallic substance. The Krell called it carnaxium, believing it to be indestructible. Previous mining attempts by other species had ended in failure, with drills shattered, lasers ineffective, and explosives barely scratching the surface. This time, the United Earth Fleet was called in, not with superior weapons or tools, but with ingenuity. As the crew gathered in the mess hall, Carter stood in front of a holographic display. The image of Carnaxium rotated slowly, its surface dark and dull. "All right, everyone," she began, "we've analyzed this stuff for weeks. It's not impossible to mine, we're just thinking about it the wrong way." A skeptical Venix technician raised a claw. "Even our plasma cutters can't handle it. What makes you think your human tools can?" Carter smiled. "I'm not suggesting brute force, I'm suggesting something smarter, thermoplastic deformation and resonance fracturing." Blank stares met her explanation. She sighed. "In simpler terms, we'll heat it to its critical point using a localized fusion coil and strike it with vibrational waves tuned to its molecular structure. It's not about breaking it, it's about finding its weakness." The Krell foreman, Gorthak, grumbled, "Humans and their strange methods. If this fails, we lose another week." "It won't fail," Carter replied confidently. The crew assembled at the mining site the next day. The humans had brought an array of seemingly simple tools: fusion heaters, sonic emitters, and an alloy hammer. Carter directed her team with precision. "We'll heat the surface here." She pointed to a fissure in the Carnaxium. "Once it's malleable, we'll hit it with sonic pulses. The metal should fracture along its weakest bonds." The fusion heater roared to life, its plasma flame bathing the Carnaxium in intense heat. The air shimmered as the temperature climbed higher and higher. Then came the sonic emitter, emitting an almost imperceptible hum. Finally, Carter picked up the hammer, its head made of a dense tungsten carbide alloy. "Time to see if this works," she said. She swung the hammer, striking the heated Carnaxium with precision. The sound reverberated, a strange, almost musical tone echoing through the air. Crack! A fracture spread across the surface of the Carnaxium, splitting off a large chunk. The gathered crew stared in disbelief. "It worked," Carter grinned, brushing soot from her gloves. The Krell foreman inspected the fractured piece, his usually gruff expression softening into awe. "You did it, human, you actually did it." By the end of the week, the team had extracted more Carnaxium than any mining crew before them. The once dismissed metal became a key material in interstellar engineering, stronger than titanium, lighter than steel, and able to withstand extreme conditions. The galaxy marveled at humanity's ingenuity, once again proving their reputation as problem solvers who thrived where others faltered. From then on, Carnaxium became known by a different name, Carterium, a nod to the human who had unlocked its potential. Top HFY Stories, The Garden of Death. When the expedition ship Celestial Venture landed on Harvex Prime, the crew was greeted with a sight that took their breath away: a vast, vibrant jungle, teeming with life. Massive flowers bloomed in every shade of the spectrum, bioluminescent vines snaked up towering trees, and the air shimmered with the iridescent wings of alien insects. To the untrained eye, it was paradise. To the humans aboard the Celestial Venture, it screamed danger. "Captain, this is a bad idea," Lieutenant Emma Rourke muttered, her voice low as she scanned the alien flora with her handheld scanner. Captain Vril, a tall, scaled Scythian, flicked his tail dismissively. "Nonsense, our preliminary scans show no dangerous lifeforms here. This planet is a treasure trove of resources." "Sure," Emma said, her tone dry, "until the plants start eating us." The rest of the crew, comprised of various species from the Galactic Union, laughed at her comment. Humans were known for their paranoia when it came to alien ecosystems. Most species chalked it up to Earth's hostile evolutionary history, a planet where almost everything was trying to kill something else. But Emma wasn't joking. She crouched next to a cluster of bright yellow flowers, their petals gently swaying despite the absence of wind. Her scanner beeped, displaying a warning: high levels of neurotoxins detected. "Captain," she called out, "these plants are producing airborne toxins. I strongly suggest we limit our exposure." "Paranoia," Vril said, waving a clawed hand. "Our breathing filters are more than sufficient." Emma gritted her teeth but said nothing. She had seen too many safe planets turn deadly in seconds. The first incident happened a few hours later. One of the crew, a lanky Venix named Cool, brushed against a vine that appeared harmless. Within moments, he collapsed, his body convulsing as the vine coiled around him like a snake. Emma reacted immediately, pulling out a plasma cutter and slicing through the vine. She dragged Cole back to the ship, but his condition was critical. "It's the neurotoxins," she told the med team. "The vines are coated in them. We need to be extremely careful." Captain Vril, now visibly shaken, reluctantly agreed to proceed with caution, but it was too late. The jungle had awakened. As night fell, the vibrant beauty of Harvex Prime revealed its true nature. The bioluminescent plants began to pulse in rhythmic patterns, and the air filled with a low, droning hum. Emma stood guard at the edge of the camp, her pulse rifle in hand. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Then, the jungle attacked. Vines lashed out from the shadows, dragging equipment and crew into the darkness. Flowers released clouds of spores that caused hallucinations and disorientation. The ground itself seemed to shift, roots snaking upward to trip and trap the unwary. The non-human crew panicked, their natural defenses useless against the relentless assault. Emma took charge. "Fall back to the ship, now." Her voice cut through the chaos, and the crew obeyed. Trusting the humans' experience, Emma covered their retreat, using her rifle to incinerate the attacking plants. By dawn, the survivors were huddled aboard the Celestial Venture, battered but alive. Captain Vril approached Emma, his pride clearly wounded but his gratitude evident. "You saved us, Lieutenant," he admitted. "I underestimated the danger, and your instincts." Emma gave a tired smile. "It's not instincts, Captain, it's Earth. We've spent millennia surviving stuff like this." As the ship lifted off, leaving the deadly beauty of Harvex Prime behind, one thing was certain: humanity's hard-earned lessons from their dangerous homeworld had once again saved the day. And the jungle, now devoid of prey, quietly returned to its deceptive tranquility, waiting for the next foolhardy visitors. Top HFY Stories. The Negotiation Gambit. The Galactic Summit was held in the Grand Chamber of Velos Primaris, a planet-sized space station that served as neutral ground for interstellar diplomacy. Delegates from over 50 species gathered to discuss an urgent crisis. The Krat Dominion, a warlike empire, was demanding control over a series of strategic star systems. Tensions were high. The Krat had a fearsome reputation, their fleets unmatched in brute force. Diplomacy was the only option to avoid a devastating war, but the Dominion's demands were impossible to meet without massive concessions. Humans, as one of the younger species in the galaxy, had a minor role in the summit, or so everyone thought. Ambassador Lisa Chen sat quietly in the human delegation's seat, observing the negotiations. She had studied the Krat extensively, not just their military strength but their culture, history, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The Krat representative, Overlord Zathrak, loomed over the assembly, his towering frame clad in ceremonial armor. His voice was a guttural growl as he laid out his terms. "We will take the Zeloran corridor. It is non-negotiable," Zathrak declared. "Resistance will be met with annihilation." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Zeloran corridor was a vital trade route. Ceding it would cripple the economies of dozens of species. The lead negotiator, a cautious Venix named Hilka, tried to reason with Zathrak. "Surely there is a compromise." "There is none," Zathrak interrupted. "Submit, or prepare for war." Lisa leaned forward and activated her microphone. "If I may, Overlord Zathrak," she said, her tone calm and measured, "I'd like to propose an alternative perspective." The chamber fell silent. The humans rarely spoke in these gatherings, and Zathrak's glowing red eyes fixed on Lisa with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "An alternative perspective?" he sneered. "What could your kind possibly offer?" Lisa stood, her expression unflinching. "A simple wager." The room buzzed with confusion, and Zathrak let out a deep, guttural laugh. "A wager? You think this is a game?" "In a way, it is," Lisa replied. "You claim the Krat Dominion is invincible, that your fleets are unstoppable, and that no one here can oppose you. But if that were truly the case, you wouldn't need this summit. You'd have taken the Zeloran corridor by force already." Zathrak's laugh stopped abruptly, his expression darkening. Lisa continued, her voice steady. "So here's my proposal, a challenge, one human ship against one Krat warship, a duel. If we win, The Krat Dominion will withdraw its claim to the corridor and agree to a 10-year ceasefire. And if you lose? Zathrak asked, his voice dripping with menace. Then humanity will withdraw from the summit entirely and leave the corridor to your mercy, Lisa said. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The other species stared at Lisa, some in awe, others in horror. Zathrak's lips curled into a predatory smile. You amuse me, human. Very well, I accept your wager. 3 days later, the duel took place near a barren moon. The Krat warship, Dominion's Wrath, was a hulking behemoth, bristling with weapons and shields. The human ship, Resolve, was a sleek, unassuming vessel that looked laughably outmatched. As the duel began, the Krat opened fire, unleashing a barrage of plasma cannons. The Resolve darted and weaved, its movements erratic and unpredictable. Inside the human ship, Captain Marcus Voss and his crew were calm, almost eerily so. Deploy the decoys, Voss ordered. Hundreds of small drones swarmed from the Resolve, creating a cloud of false targets. The Krat's targeting systems struggled to lock onto the real ship. Engage the EMP, Voss said next. A pulse of electromagnetic energy rippled outward, temporarily disabling the Krat ship's shields. The Resolve moved in, firing precision railgun shots at key systems. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, the Dominion's Wrath floated powerless, its weapons disabled and its engines dead. Back at the summit, Overlord Zathrak seethed with rage as Lisa calmly addressed the assembly. This wasn't just about one battle, she said, it was about proving that brute force alone isn't invincible. Humanity thrives on adaptability, innovation, and strategy, and we're not the only ones. She gestured to the other delegates. Together, we can stand against any threat. The chamber erupted in applause. The Krat, humiliated but bound by their honor, withdrew their claim. From that day, humanity's reputation as cunning tacticians spread across the galaxy, a reminder that in the game of survival, brains often triumph over brawn. Top HFY Stories, The Engineer's Gamble. The colony on Gliese 411c was humanity's frontier outpost, a barren, rocky planet on the edge of habitable space. Its location made it valuable for mining rare minerals and as a refueling station for deep space exploration, but it was also isolated, with minimal defenses, an easy target for anyone looking to claim it. When the Chorvani marauders appeared, the colonists knew they were in trouble. The marauders were infamous across the galaxy for their ruthless raids, leaving no survivors and taking anything of value. As their fleet of jagged, black warships descended into orbit, panic spread among the 5,000 colonists. The planet's defenses consisted of a single, outdated orbital cannon and a handful of combat drones. Chief Engineer Sarah Kovacs stood in the colony's control center, staring at the tactical display. The Chorvani ships were already preparing to land. She knew they couldn't hold them off in a straight fight. Evacuation? One of her assistants asked, his voice trembling. No time, Sarah replied, her mind racing. We'll have to outthink them. While the colony's leaders debated surrender, Sarah assembled a small team in the engineering bay. Listen up, she said, the Chorvani are expecting an easy win. We're going to make them regret underestimating us. Her team exchanged uncertain glances. With what? We've got one cannon and a handful of drones, someone pointed out. Sarah grinned. That's all we need, if we're smart about it. As the Chorvani dropships descended, Sarah's plan went into motion. The drones, instead of engaging directly, flew erratically through the sky, releasing chaff clouds and decoys. The orbital cannon, which hadn't fired yet, suddenly lit up, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of targeting the dropships, it fired at a series of pre-programmed points on the planet's surface. The ground beneath the dropships erupted, as carefully placed explosives and rigged mining charges detonated. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the ships outright, but they created massive plumes of dust and debris, blinding the marauders' sensors. Inside the control room of the Chorvani flagship, Commander Vraz slammed a clawed hand on the console. What is this? He roared. Our systems are compromised, one of his officers reported. Their drones are releasing EMP pulses. Our targeting systems are offline. Vraz growled, his sharp teeth bared. then land manually and overwhelm them. As the Chorvani dropships landed and troops poured out, they found the colony eerily quiet. The streets were empty, and the only sounds were the faint hums of machinery. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet shifted. The marauders stumbled as the floor gave way, dropping them into pits lined with electrified conduits, repurposed mining equipment. Elsewhere, hidden speakers blasted ear-piercing sonic waves, disorienting the invaders. Automated loaders and drilling machines, remotely controlled by Sarah's team, charged into the fray, smashing into the marauders with mechanical precision. It was chaos. The marauders, expecting an easy fight, were caught completely off guard. Back aboard the flagship, Vraz received a transmission. Sarah's face appeared on the screen, calm and confident. "You've got two choices," she said. "Leave now, or we'll make sure none of your ships leave orbit." Vraz sneered. "You think your pathetic tricks can stop us?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Look outside." Vraz turned to the viewport. What he saw made his blood run cold. The colony's orbital cannon, which had seemed like a non-threat, was now aimed directly at the flagship. The cannon's energy core glowed ominously, overcharged to the point of critical instability. "If you fire that, you'll destroy yourselves too," Vraz snarled. "Maybe," Sarah said with a smirk, "but are you really willing to gamble on that?" For a tense moment, silence hung between them, then Vraz snarled and cut the transmission. Moments later, the Chorvani fleet broke orbit and retreated. The colonists cheered as the marauders fled. Sarah leaned back in her chair, exhaustion washing over her. One of her engineers grinned at her. "You really weren't going to blow us all up, were you?" Sarah smirked. "Of course not, but they didn't know that." From that day, Sarah Kovacs was hailed as the Gambler of Gliese, a testament to humanity's ability to turn the tide with nothing but courage, creativity, and a well-played bluff.